Welcome to part 3. We are moving right along. So in this section here, we are beginning with our application here, our application testing, okay? We're gonna write our first test. But before we do that, I actually noticed one thing. I just realized it now. I've been yapping all along from part 1 to part 2, and I never actually shown you guys what the application does. Like, you've seen it on the code, but I'm gonna run it for the first time here so you can see what it does. Then from then on, we're gonna start up with our first test, okay? Righty, let me just save everything here and then make sure that I close everything so you guys can follow right along. So let's go close all documents. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open our program.cs, which is where we need to actually write our code and run it, okay? And then I'm gonna open our bank account.cs, okay? So we're gonna create an instance of this class here and then do the deposit, okay? Then from then on, we'll see how this actually functions, okay? Let's go here, what do we call it? Bank account, okay, equal to new bank account, okay? There we go. Then it requires us to actually state what the balance is, okay? So the balance for now, we're gonna just put it, let me just say 500 like we had said on our initial intro there. Then from then on, once I'm done saying creating the bank account instance, now I'm gonna go in and say bank account dot deposit. I'm gonna call the deposit method. You can see we have multiple methods in there. So I'm gonna say deposit. And then how much am I depositing, okay? The deposit amount. The deposit amount will be 500 right now, okay? Then from then on, we're gonna go in and say, we want to know what the balance is basically. So let's go console. Let me see console dot write line. Alrighty. So let's try. Let's start with that. I'm gonna then just do our string here. Let's see. Just hold on one moment. Your account has. Okay, I'll do a space in there. Then I'll just put that there, and then say, let me put an R here. Proudly South African there, okay? Don't judge me. And then I'll say bank account dot balance. Righty. Let's see what happens there. Okay, so I'm gonna try running this, and I assume, based on what I've shown you guys before about the notification service, we might have a problem here, but let me just run it, and it will be good to have a problem so we can try and troubleshoot it together. Okay, let me drag this in here. You can see my screen is just blank now, my console app, and then we have in this is the problem I was talking about here. Okay, this here I was simulating when the services are down. Okay, and because of this, when we're going to write our test later on, and our services are down, our test will always fail in that regard. We'll never have a passing deposit because this is failing. But anyway, that's a topic for a later session. So let's go and stop this here. And I'm gonna comment this part of the code out, and then we can have what we initially said we are set to do. I'm gonna run this now, and then we're gonna run. You can see that whole SMS thing is, never mind this is the part of the SMS here, but your account has that much, okay? This is what we did here. Come on, come here. This is what we did here. So we created a new instance of our account, of the bank account, and then we deposited, and then from then on we kind of just wrote it out what the balance is, okay? Great. Then let's see. Then because of from this point up to this point here, okay? From that point to this point, this is basically the functionality that is related to the bank account. So this here is just by proxy, really. We're just borrowing this to say notify client. Yes, this method is defined within this class here, but it's actually calling a separate class here. And the only reason I made it a method here is because I have 2 lines in here. Then I'm thinking, okay, if I'm having 2 lines in here, that means from withdraw, I'm gonna write 2 lines. I'm gonna write another 2 lines here, and I'm gonna write, so that's just too much duplication there. So hence I just try to follow, the good coding principle. Wrap this around a private method. You will notice it's private. okay? And you cannot test the private methods because you don't know what they do. Ideally, if you think about it, you cannot test what you cannot see. And the main example that I gave you earlier on was I gave you an example of a car, okay? So all you know is that you put the car key in the ignition and you start the car. That's how you're testing. You don't know the contents of the engine, all of that combustion and all of that stuff that's happening. And I just said combustion. That word just came in my head. I don't know exactly why, but yes, I don't know anything about that, okay? All that happens in the mechanics of all the things that move inside your engine, you don't know. And you might know, and lucky for you and kudos for you, you're the smart person there, but I don't, okay? I just put in the car key and I start the car, and if the engine goes make the right noise, okay, then I'm assuming everything is okay, I can move. I mean, it can also fail the test by making the noise, but not the right noise. And I'm like, hey, this sounds so offish, okay? But that's not the case here, okay? So we don't know, assume that the only methods that are available to us are these other ones here. This private, you can't see it, you don't care. The same way, testing the car, you have the interface that you're actually communicating with the car with, and in terms of starting the car, and that's the ignition part. And then you just turn that part on, and that's about it. That's the interface that's exposed to you, okay? You don't know anything about the contents, and right now you don't know anything about this. And because we don't know anything about this notifier method here, we just know that we call it. We just know that deposit calls it, but we don't know its implementation. And the implementation here is that it calls another class here, and we cannot test that. And that's part of the reason why we had that error that I've just shown you here when we were throwing an exception, okay? Because of that, we need a way to make sure that that doesn't happen when you're running our tests. Okay, but anyway, we are done with that. We've seen that we were able to create a new bank account, we were able to deposit, and we're able to say, hey, there is the balance there. Okay, now we're gonna go into, let me see. We are 7 minutes in, so I was trying to see if we can just cut this short here and make sure that we go on to our next session here. Actually, let me rather do that. Just in the interest of time, to not make this too long, let me cut it here, because at least here we'll just make it like an introduction to running our project, okay? So in the next session, specifically now start writing code for this. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Catch you on the next one.